Alright, welcome back to yet another video. I'm on a recording spree, I feel like, because both my roommates are out of town, so I got the apartment for myself. So, yeah, I'm just recording a shitload of videos now so I can upload them once I've done the thumbnails and everything, and in case I don't have time for a while. So anyway, we are getting to the fun stuff. With fun stuff, I mean the weapon stuff, obviously, and the combat stuff. So, yeah, that's it. We're done with the boring movement stuff. The movement stuff looks nice, but we are doing the item stuff now. So we have our item here that we're gonna be working with. So let's just jump into it. In this episode, we're gonna do the equipping the item, or not equipping to the hands, but just picking it up and having it on our backs, I think, or wherever you want to have it. And this is where basically where we get to the advanced stuff. So I'm gonna talk multiplayer, so make sure to listen. It might be a long episode. I might have to pause every now and then the recording, because this is confusing even me sometimes. So it's important that we're actually very structured around here. It's always important to be structured when doing programming, but yeah, whatever, get into it. We are going to be using something called structures. So I made a folder called enums and structs, so you do that as well. And in it we're going to create our structures. And basically what structures are is it allows you to create one variable inside of your blueprints, which and that variable can hold a lot more information, not just variables. It can hold more variables. It can hold static meshes information. It can hold information about what animation sequence you want to do and things like that. So we're going to use it a lot. So we're going to add more and more, and it's going to be very obvious why once we start with the AI stuff. But for now, just go right-click blueprint structure and call it structure weapon details. It's what we're going to call this one. And right-click and create another one called blueprints structure s mesh details. So I'm going to show you what this means. So if we open our S weapon details, this is going to be our main one. So the first thing we want to have is we want to have a name for our weapon. So name the variable name and a name. Save all. And the second variable we're going to use is mesh details. And this is going to be of the type s_mesh details, which is the one that we made here. You have it here. And the mesh details are going to hold a static mesh, and it will be of the type, you guessed it, static mesh. Bam. So the static mesh. And this is also going to be a unequipped slot name. It's going to be of the type name, and we're going to do a equipped slot name, and it's also going to be of the type name. And that's everything we need for this tutorial, and we're going to keep adding stuff here, but I will show you what this means and what these two things actually do. So if you go into your master weapon, that I'm pretty sure we did in the last video, we're gonna add a variable, and it's gonna be called weapon details, and compile, and the weapon details are gonna be of the type s weapon details. So this variable now efficiently holds the information that we assigned to this s weapon detail structure. So if we go into our master weapon again, you can see that this variable now, instead of clogging up the list here with plenty of variables, as you can see my mouse is actually working on the screen now, so it's a lot easier for me to actually say here, 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 here. So you have the weapon details here. And instead of like clogging up with a lot of variables and things here, on the right side we have the values. You can see that we can set the values of this variable on the instances of the blueprint. So the name, and we have the details and everything. So it basically stores a lot more information. And the reason we also did 2 of them is because it's going to be a lot easier to organize everything. Because you see now, when I have the weapon details minimized, it doesn't clog up the screen with everything. I can fold it out, and you have the name, and then we have the mesh details, and I can fold those out, and we have the mesh details. And then we're going to add like the attack details for this specific weapon. We're going to add the stats for this specific weapons and everything. So it's, instead of like being a shitload of information over your entire screen, it's easy to organize it like this, if you get the point. So now we can open this sword instance, and if we just select the sword self here, you can see that on the right side we have our sword details. So here we can set the details of this instance of the blueprint. Pretty sweet, right? So, and this is just an item. So this yeah, it's fine for now. This one is obviously gonna be named Super Epic Sword of Mega Dragon Slaying. Classic sword name. And the static mesh is gonna be this mesh that we're using for the item. So sword self details. The static mesh is gonna be this sword. And we're gonna do the equipment, the slot equip thing soon. Perfect. So that's fine for now. In your player character, you want to add a variable for item to pick up, or actually weapon to pick up, and this is going to be of the type master weapon. So this is going to be the master weapon class. So this is going to be the item that we pick up when we want to pick up an item. So if you go to your master weapon, we're going to need two functions here. Select your collision and go into begin overlap, which basically triggers, so this event triggers whenever something overlaps with this collision. And select it again and end overlap, which is the same but when something ends the collision. We want to from the other actor, so this is the master weapon, so the other actor is the actor that is colliding with the sphere collision. So from there we're going to cast to player third person character, and from here we're going to also cast to player third person character. We're soon gonna get into the multiplayer stuff, so just hold on for a little while. So what you want to do is you want to, we did this variable here, weapon to pick up. So from this you want to set weapon to pick up. Oh, sorry. Set weapon. So that means that whenever we are overlapping this, the current weapon to pick up will be this. Actually it won't, because you need to drag from here and type self, get a reference to self. So since these blueprints are executed on the master weapon, the self reference is the instance of this master weapon. So whenever we collide with the collision, we set the weapon to pick up of the colliding player to this weapon. And whenever we leave, we set it to nothing. Also, in your master weapon, select this And there are plenty of replication issues that can pop up everywhere, but what we need to do is, because this is an actor and we want this actor to replicate, we want to select this replicate. Otherwise, it's not going to be transferred correctly. So replicate this one, and all of the child items will be replicated. Perfect. So let's see if this works. It might not work yet. I know, in that case I know why, but let's start by, okay. So if we right click and press E key. So let's use E as our action button. So if we press E, get weapon to pick up. So from E, print string. And we have this weapon to pick up, and we know that, and this is a reference to the master weapon class, and this master weapon class contains this variable called weapon details. So it should do that from our player as well. So just from this weapon to pick up, get weapon details. There we go. You have the weapon details of the current weapon to pick up. You can break it and just drag in the name there. Since, let's see if it works. It should, since it's replicated, but let's see. So if you can see when we press E now, there's none to pick up. But if we enter this, it's the super epic sword of mega dragon slaying. And if we leave, it's none again. So it's working. I got a shitload of errors on my other side, and that's because we need to, I would say that it's because we need to add a is valid node. So before anything here, if the weapon to pick up is valid, it never harms to do an is valid check. If the weapon to pick up is valid. Perfect. And the reason, as you can see here, we didn't need any weird functions or anything, and this weapon to pick up isn't even replicated, but still it replicated to the client. And that's because the actor is replicated. So if it's not working, it's probably because you forgot to set replicates here. Let me just see. I might have, let's just try, and I'm going to disable the replicates there. And let's just see if it still creates problems. Oh, okay, it still works. So let's not replicate that actor then. It's not required. If it's not required, we shouldn't do it. But we know, for instance, now we know if there are problems later, we might need to replicate it. But if you don't need it, don't do it. So that's the first part. Let's see how far we get without having it's replicating. What we want to do now is we're going to create another function called custom event set weapon. And now we get into the multiplayer stuff. So bear with me while I try to explain the 3 ways to replicate stuff. There are 3 current ways to do it efficiently, and they all have different use cases. That's why there are 3 of them. We know the multicasts, right? Because we've used them before, and I've used them in plenty of my previous tutorials. And you can just use multicasts. It's fine, you can use it all the time. The problem with a multicast, it depends on what kind of game you're trying to make as well. And I probably should have a PowerPoint or something to explain this more properly. But the problem with a multicast is that if we set our weapons when we cast, for instance, this is going to be this is a super good example with equipping weapons actually. So let me just show you the different ways to actually do this. So let's start with a multicast, because we are using a multicast now and we have done it before. So let me show you the pros and cons. So in order to do a multicast, we first need to do a server event. So server set weapon. It's going to be run on the server. And I'm going to explain what reliable and not has for consequences here as well. So we're going to do another custom event called MC set weapon. And this is going to be a multicast. So what we want to do here is on your player character, just to be able to show everything to you, we're going to do a static mesh. And this is going to be the main hand mesh. Right. So what we're going to do here is when we pick the item up, we are going to, so from the server, we're going to set the MC set mesh. And we are going to get a reference to our main hand mesh, set static mesh. And we're going to set the static mesh like that. So just to explain multicasts one more time, it's run on the server firstly, and the multicast is, so the information comes from the server and the server casts it to all the clients. So we need to transfer the information from the server to the multicast this way to get the most updated information. And we cast it here. Perfect. So execute on all, execute on server. So this is one way to do it, and this should work. So when we do E, we're going to do server set weapon. And the static mesh that we're going to set is if you break or get details, we get the details from our weapon to pick up, and we break those again. And we have our mesh details and we break those, and here we have our static mesh. So this is why we use blueprint structures, because it's very easy for us to get information from everywhere. So, and if you remember correctly, on the sword we have this static mesh here. So this is the current mesh of our weapon details. So whenever we enter the collision, we should be able to get the static mesh to the server set weapon. Let's see if this works. As you can see, it's working. We have our static mesh. It's under the legs now. I'm gonna fix that soon, but I'm just doing this to show you the different ways to actually replicate stuff. So as you can see, it's working fine with multicasts. Let me just show you it's working on both client and server. As you can see, on the client to the right, we pick up the weapon, and on the left side screen you can see that the static mesh with the weapon is there. So it's working fine with multicasts. So why don't we just use a multicast? I'm gonna explain that to you very, very soon. But first we're just gonna make it look a little bit nicer, because we're gonna need to do this anyway. Before we actually do this, in your player character, on the server set weapon, we are actually now we're setting the mesh, but what we also want to do is attach to component, attach component to component. So what we want to do is, as you can see, the sword appeared beneath our legs, and we don't want that. We want it to be on the back or on the belt or wherever you want to. So the parent is going to be our mesh. It's going to be our mesh. The target is still going to be the main hand mesh. And the socket name here, we're going to pass that through. Going to pass it through. And so and we already did this, as you can see, and we're going to have it when we pick it up. We want it to be on our unequipped slot. So unequipped slot name, drag it here. So we are sending the information to the server, and the server is sending it to all clients to set the mesh and to attach it to wherever we want to. So let's just get an unequipped socket name. So you need to go into your player, into your skeleton. Here is our player skeleton, and I want to attach my sword to the back. So just select your spine. I'm gonna do spine 03 and right click on spine 03 and add socket, and we're gonna call it equip sword. And now we need to align it so it actually looks good. So if you right click on your newly created socket, add preview asset, and we have our sm_sword, which is the sword that we're using, and this is not how we want it to look. So just align the socket so it looks nice. Something like that, something like that, something like that. And that is fine. So Control C your socket name. It needs to be exact with the capital letters. And then we go into the sword, and on our details, the unequipped socket name. Oh, sorry. Let's make it unequip. Ah, fuck. Unequip. And here as well. Sorry. Unequip. Unequip sword. Perfect. Unequip sword. And since we set the unequipped slot name here to unequip sword, it should be the same here, and it should, as we transfer it there, it should snap to that location. But what we also need to do is we need to change this to snap to target and weld simulated body if that's not already selected. All right, let's see if it's working. Bam! As you can see, it snaps to our back right now. So we have currently equipped our sword, and we can go to our client, other clients, and you can see that it's actually working here. We can go here as well and pick it up again, and you can see that we both now have the sword equipped. So that's pretty cool. So that's one way to do it. And you can see it's working fine, and I've been doing this in a lot of my previous tutorials, and it's not wrong, but in certain types of games this is gonna be unreliable. It's not really gonna work, and let me just address that first. On your player character, now these are reliable. Reliable means that it's always gonna execute. So this multicast will trigger even if the player is on the other side of the map, which might not always be necessary. For equipping the weapon, everybody actually needs to be aware of the fact that you are equipping this weapon. So the problem with a multicast in this case is if you're not doing it reliably, when your other character becomes net relevant, so say you have another actor on the other side of the map and you equip this weapon, you would actually need to make it reliable, because otherwise when the other player comes closer to the equipping player, he needs to know that he actually equipped that sword, even if he wasn't net relevant when it happened. Net relevant is basically meaning that, do I need to know, does the information need to be seen on this network client? It's hard to explain. I I hope you understand what I mean. Do you see the problem here? There's another problem with multicasts. Say that I pick up this weapon and the game that you're making, people can connect when the game is already started. So you don't have like a lobby where everybody needs to be connected from the start, but people can connect as the game is going. If you equip your weapon with a multicast and a player connects afterward, after the multicast has been done, that connecting player won't know that you have equipped a new weapon. And the same problem with the other side of the map. If you're on the other side of the map and it's not reliable, once you actually get to the same side of the map, you're not going to know that he equipped that weapon. So that's the problem with multicasts. I hope you understand what I mean with that. So that's the problem with multicasts. You could also set it you could also set it on you could do like this on owning client and do this on the server, run on server. That's also one way to do it. But that's not going to work. As you see, nothing happens. The reason I wanted to show this is because this is what we're doing here for the set max walk speed, owning client and running on server. And this is replicating even though, so we don't need to multicast this. That's weird, right? As you can see, the movement speed is actually replicating. Okay, you can't see it, but it is. As you can see, the movement speed is replicating even though we're not multicasting and we're not casting it on the server. I'm not entirely sure why. Usually, for that to be possible, or I think I know why, for that to be possible, if we're not multicasting in this case, we would need to do so. To explain this simply, when it comes to basic variables, like only a variable, it's fine to replicate it on the owning client and on the server alone, as long as that variable is set to replicate it. If that variable is set to replicate, it's gonna be fine. If you want to replicate that variable, you only need to do it on the client and on the server. The reason it works here is because the character movement is replicated. Since this actor is replicated, I hope, yeah. So the player third-person character is set to replicates by default, and the built-in code for the character movement is actually built into replicates. So that's why this variable from the character movement is actually replicating, even though you can see it doesn't even have the option to set replication settings for it. It's by standard replicated. But if it was a normal variable, we would need to set it to replication to replicate it. In that case, you can do owning client and server, but that's not going to work in this case. You could technically try to replicate, set these to replicate, but that's not going to work either. So you see, it's not going to work with the owning client and custom server here, and it's not going to be it's going to work with the multicast, but it's not going to be optimal. It's going to work especially if you have a reliable multicast. It's going to work with a multicast as long as you have a reliable multicast and as long as people aren't going to be able to connect after the game has started. If you see what I mean, then it's also going to be fine with a multicast. But it's not good, for instance, if you have a big map with 50 players in it and you're going to multicast reliably to all of those 50 whenever someone equips a weapon. So there's a better way to do this. So let's delete the MC set. Actually, let's not delete it because we're going to use it. Let's delete this. There is a better way to do this, and we are going to do it by something called a rep notify instead. And rep notifiers are better in this case So create a new variable, call it equipped weapon, or actually equipped main hand, because we're gonna do offhand as well. The offhand is gonna be the shield. So the equipped main hand, it's not gonna be the type master weapon, it's gonna be the type weapon details. And in this case we don't need to send the information like this. So rep notifiers are replicated as long as they run on the server, and rep notifiers are very good because they notify every client that becomes net relevant when they become net relevant. So it's not relevant to send the information that we are equipping a weapon to a player that is on the other side of the map. That's not network relevant. We don't need to do that. But as soon as the other player comes closer to the player that equipped the weapon, he's gonna need to be he's gonna become net relevant. And the second he becomes network relevant, he's gonna need to know that that player actually equipped this weapon. Otherwise it will be super weird. So that's what rep notifiers do, is they update whenever something new becomes network relevant. That means that it's also gonna work if you equip a weapon and someone connects after the game has started, after you already equipped the weapon. You're gonna be, that new connected player is gonna be network relevant, and all of a sudden you're gonna need to know that a new weapon is equipped. I hope that makes sense. So make this run on server. That's my rant. Hopefully you understood it. I don't think I can explain it better, but yeah, you probably need to Google and read up on it as well. But that's my explanation of it, and I'm not even entirely sure that I understand everything 100% correctly. So don't take my absolute word for it. But that's my understanding of it. So this equipped main hand, set it to rep notify. And what a rep notify does, it's basically a function. As you can see, if we double click it, we enter the rep notify function. And also, I forgot to say, you can't use rep notifies for everything because they only update when the information is changed. So it's perfect. The rep notify is actually perfect for equipping weapons because the variable is going to change every time. So drag the information through here. And what we need to do is the things that are replicated are gonna be happening inside of the rep notify. So we have this information from the multicast before. Enter here. So this is what's gonna be happening every time the rep notify is updated. So get your equipped main hand weapon. So the reason we can get it is because we're setting it here, and whatever happens here is after we set it. So we set the equipped main hand details, which means we can get them inside of the function. So break them on the same way we did the for and the mesh and the unequipped slot. And go back to this one and refresh notes, and we don't need to pass all of the information. The only information we need to pass on is the weapon details. And it needs to be run on the server. And also why I like rep notifiers is because they look so clean. Look, no mess anywhere. Equip weapon, or actually not equip, set active weapon. So let's see if that works. Bam. Bam. You can see it's working. Easy peasy, right? Oh, fuck it. I'm just gonna deal with that later. So yeah, one last thing. You do whatever you want to do in your game, but I'm gonna do when I pick this weapon up, it's gonna be destroyed. So where is it? So here is our item pickup. Let's just comment this out as well. Sorry, it's getting dark. WASD logic, and this is item weapon pickup. So if we actually do pick up the weapon, we can destroy it, and it should be fine. So it's run on the server. So this destroy actor and the target actor, we're gonna pass it through item to destroy, and we have the node here, and the item to destroy is gonna be the weapon to pick up. Now we maybe need to set it to replicates. Okay, so it's not destroyed. Let's see if it's the reason is because we need to set it to replicates that we didn't before. Yeah, there it is. So there we had to set it to replicates. So nice that I know something about this. I have learned something for the last 1.5 years that I've been using Unreal. Okay, good. That's it, as you can see. I don't think I will be able to explain this better. You can see on the other client the weapon is actually gone and it's equipped to this one as well. So when it comes to destroying actors, it's the server who holds all the actor information, so you can just destroy it on the server as long as the actor is set to replicated. You don't need to set the actor to replication. If we did a multicast or rep notify, we could just destroy the actor in that as well. But it's fine for now. So that's about it for this video. 37 minutes. I think I warned you, hopefully I warned you at the start of the video that it was going to be a longer one. Because I felt that I really had to dig a little bit deeper into the explanation of the different replication issues, and we're gonna keep talking about that. There's ways to like set the net relevance distance and things like that, and when to use rep notifiers and when to not use rep notifiers. You could actually do a rep notifiers for the attacks and things like that as well, but I usually just do multicasts for the attacks. But yeah, that's about it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments or whatever. Also, I forgot to ask you, but if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. If you watched this far, 40 minutes, bam. Anyway, thanks for the video and have a great evening. Or day, or whatever. Stop recording.